Hello and welcome everybody to the NWR Resources Conference. I have with me the Managing Director of AKORA Resources, Mr. Paul Bibby, who will be presenting the current company presentation and walk us through the Bekisopa high-grade iron ore project. I'll hand it over to Paul and we'll take questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome to this NWR Investor Update on AKORA Resources Bekisopa high-grade iron ore project, where we are targeting the maiden JORC resource by this year's end. The cover photo today is drill hole number 40 in the central area of the 6-kilometre strike at Bekisopa. This hole finished in mineralisation at 103 metres. You can see the background. It's a very isolated location, gently undulating land, and off to the left of the photo there is a gully. And in that gully you can see lumps of iron ore product, potential product, and rich iron ore ground. I think we all understand the forward-looking statements and the competent person statements, but they're there for your reference. AKORA Resources is Madagascan iron ore. We have 3 projects, but our flagship project is Bekisopa, 100% owned by AKORA. We have 4 permits there, just under 100 square kilometres of ground in central South Madagascar. There is high-grade outcropping iron ore at surface. So if you look at that picture in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there's massive lumps of iron ore on surface, grading around an average of 67%. Lumps like this one in my hand, which all that needs to happen is for it to be crushed for 30 millimetres, and you have a lump high-grade product ready for the blast furnace. There's been significant historical work prior to acquisition by AKORA. You can see the picture there on the bottom right-hand corner. That's a trench that was dug in the 1960s. It's on top of a little hill, and in that trench you can see lumps of iron ore in amongst the iron-rich country rock. There's the 6-kilometre strike on the main 2 tenements. Drilling has confirmed significant iron mineralisation at surface, at depth and along strike. The process trials that we conducted earlier this year showed that the drill core readily upgrades to high-grade fines. And Bekisopa, there you can see on the central map, is some 250 kilometres to the port of Toliara on the west coast. Our other 2 projects are Tratramarina and Ambodilafa. They're future opportunities once we've established and progressed the project Bekisopa. October 2019, we did an extensive geological survey at Bekisopa. That showed that there's extensive outcropping and iron mineralisation is traceable over the entire 6 kilometres of the strike length. The iron mineralisation is interpreted as being a series of parallel layers of massive magnetite and hematite. If you look in this trench here, trench 39E, it shows that deep west dipping massive iron mineralisation, with the host rock containing magnetite between those high-grade layers. Also in October 2019, we conducted a ground magnetic survey. The results showed, and that's the central image here on the screen, the results showed a relatively consistent high magnetic body extending over 6 kilometres. We walked some 400 kilometres, crisscrossing the strike there every 50 metres. If we do a transverse line there, the yellow line in the north, looking at the image on the left-hand side of the screen, the magnetic intensity increases from the west to a very high peak and then drops away to the east. That has been modelled as a simple magnetic body, the red ellipsoid, as shown there on the picture, dipping to the west for a depth of at least 500 metres and possible widths of 150 metres. Drilling that we've done so far in the north is confirming this geological model. Looking in the centre, what we see there is a bit more complex in that the magnetic intensity increases and then it increases again. This has been modelled as several magnetic bodies, one flat lying, the oval shape, with a width of 150 metres, another dipping to the west, depth extent of at least 300 metres. It may even be, as we're seeing from the drilling, that those 2 shapes are connected. And the drilling in the centre and the south is confirming the geological model, which is quite encouraging. In 2020, we commenced drilling at Bekisopa, October, November of last year. That drilling was designed to confirm iron mineralisation at depth and along strike. We completed 12 shallow holes, less than 100 metres, for just on 1,100 metres of drilling. The black dots on this image here on the right-hand side. So you can see a couple of dots there in the north, several in the centre, and 3 or 4 in the south over the full extent of the 6 kilometre strike. All intercepted iron mineralisation at surface, with several holes ending in mineralisation at 100 metres. The 2021 drilling campaign is underway now. That's designed to add volume and tonnes to the 2020 drilling intercepts. We've completed 30 shallow drill holes, the blue dots here on the right-hand image, extending all the way from the far north to the very south. These drill holes to a depth, as I said, of 100 metres is to define the eastern extent of the iron mineralisation along strike. So we've gone down along that magnetic anomaly, following the strike to define the eastern side of the strike. We've still got some 20 deeper holes to complete. They're the green dots. And as you can see, that they're designed to define the iron mineralisation extent across the strike and at depth. In total, we'll be doing 4,500 metres of diamond drilling, which will be completed by the end of this month, October. The drill grids in the north of the tenement, in the centre and southern areas will all become input for the JORC resource, which will be defined by year's end, all being well. What we're seeing at Bekisopa is 3 quite distinct types of iron mineralisation. At surface, we're seeing what we're called weathered massive iron mineralisation. And looking at these drill core boxes on the left, Bekisopa 1, which is the first drill hole we drilled, that drill core box in the north, from surface to 6.5 metres, the grade there averages 64% iron. And if you recall, the benchmark iron ore grade is 62%. So this surface material is already better than benchmark grade at surface. Drill hole Bekisopa number 10, which is in the south. From surface to 4 metres, the average grade of that drill core box is 59% iron. Very encouraging. At depth, what we're seeing is massive iron mineralisation. Looking at these 2 drill core boxes, the colour of the drill core is different. The grey is the iron mineralisation, the white and the yellow being the country rock. Drill core box number 9, which is in the south, 42 to 46 metres, has an average grade there of 61% iron. So very encouraging. Drill core box 10, also from the south, at a depth of 32 to 36 metres, has an average grade there of 63% iron, better than benchmark at 32 metres. Further at depth, what we're seeing is coarse disseminated iron mineralisation. So lower grade iron, but again, quite considerable amount of iron in that drill core, mixed in with the country rocks at depth and across the site. The first drill core box here on the upper left-hand side is Bekisopa drill hole 1 in the north. From a depth of 56 to 60 metres, the average grade of that 4 metres of drill core is 45% iron, a very encouraging and readily upgradable iron ore grade. Drill core box 3 is from the central zone of the Bekisopa strike, a depth of 34 to 37 metres, average grade of 42% iron. All very good. What we're seeing so far from the 2021 drilling is drill core is showing similar iron mineralisations at surface and at depth. The weathered massive iron mineralisation in drill core box number 33 from surface to 4 metres, we haven't got the assay results on that yet. They'll be coming in the next month. That would be expected to grade around 58 to 60% iron, going by what we saw from the 2020 drilling. The image on the bottom left-hand side is massive iron mineralisation from drill hole number 38 in the south, a depth of 50 to 55 metres. Again, we haven't had that one assayed yet, but we're expecting that to be 55 to 60% iron ore in that drill core. Looking more specifically at a couple of the drill holes, this is drill hole number 1, the first hole we put into the Bekisopa resource. It's in the north, and it's the only vertical hole that we drilled. What this showed was an intercept at 7 metres at 64.7% on average. 25 metres depth down hole, 50.8% iron, and 70 metres downhole, an average of 44% iron. All very encouraging from the first drill hole. Looking more closely at that surface material, that box there is weathered massive iron ore grading 64% from surface to 5 metres. At 58 to 60 metres downhole, we're seeing this coarse disseminated material, and that is grading 50% iron. So all very promising for future product out of the Bekisopa project. The next drill hole sequence is from 2020 and 2021 drill holes, Bekisopa 9 to 43 in the southern area. What we see here is high-grade surface iron mineralisation again. Results of 62.4%, 61.3, 25 metres at 61.4, 37 metres at 47.5% there on the right-hand side, all from surface. The width across strike is some 650 metres from left to right on that image. What we first saw is that the ore body was dipping down, and then with drill hole 43, which has a continuous iron mineralisation downhole of 135 metres, the ore body is turning back up and connecting with drill holes 34 and 5, which is seeing around 40 metres of iron mineralisation from surface. All very encouraging for a low strip ratio mining operation. High grade results at depth and at surface right across that full width. Closely at this surface iron mineralisation from the 2020 drill holes. So in summary, the best intercept we received was 67.7%. So that's similar to what we're seeing in the outcropping rocks right across surface. Rocks like this one here, which is grading around 67 or 68% iron, very low in impurities. The surface weathered zone, average results across all 12 holes from 2020 show that the top 5 metres average grade was 53% iron. The top 15 metres from surface average grade 48% iron. All very good results. If we look more closely at drill hole number 11, which is in the south, weathered massive iron mineralisation from surface to 19 metres here. The surface to 7 metre mark, 59%. From 7 to 13 metres, 59% iron, and from 13 to 19 metres, 64% iron. So on average, that material could be readily mined and shipped off as product to the iron and steel makers. Also, for 2020 drill core, we did some processing trials and the results were quite excellent. What we did is we took composites from the drill core, crushed that to 2 millimetres and processed it using wet, low-intensity magnetic separation. These were just the first trials to get an idea of how the drill core material might upgrade. There was no optimization, and what we saw was quite impressive. From the weathered massive mineralisation, we achieved 67% iron product grade. So that was upgrading from those 59, 60% we're seeing in the weathered massive mineralisation to 67% iron product grade. The image there on the bottom left-hand corner. A very clean, weathered looking product, grading 66.9% iron with low phos, silica and alumina. Processing trials on the massive and coarse mineralisation achieved on average 63% iron, upgrading from 55s and 58% head grades in the ground. What we are seeing is a very clean metallic looking product, grading 66.5% iron. So that was at 2 millimetre crush. We also then went and did a few other crushing trials to see what the improvement might be at a finer crush size. So we did trials from 3 millimetres down to 0.5 millimetre crushing. What this showed is that at 3 millimetres on the Bekisopa mineralisation, that delivers benchmark grade of 62%, the image there on the left. And as the crushing size decreases from 3 down to 2 to 1, the iron ore grade improves with a 65% achievable at -1 millimetres. Similarly, as the crushing decreases, the impurity levels decrease as you would expect, the image on the right-hand side there, looking at the combined silica and alumina grades. So in summary, the 2020 drilling results show that Bekisopa is a high-grade iron ore prospect. From surface, we're seeing 7 metres at 64.7%, 37 metres at 47.5% continuous from surface. At depths down to 100 metres, 25 metres at 61.4%, 30 metres at 46.2% and the like. On the processing trials we've done on crushed 2mm material, product grades up to 68% at a 2mm crush from the Bekisopa material from drill core. 67% iron from weathered massive iron from the surface, an average of 63% iron ore fines from massive and coarse iron mineralisation, all with low impurity levels. There's scope for a significant resource at Bekisopa. That's what all this is stacking up to mean. There's scope for a significant resource and capable of producing high-grade iron ore fines products. Moving now to the 2021 drilling campaign, which is underway. It's been underway since the middle of June this year. We're looking to drill 4,500 metres of diamond drilling, with near on half of that already completed. And the drilling will be completed by the end of October. We're now on double shifts and moving through the ground quite nicely. We've intercepted iron mineralisation at surface and depths up to 185 metres down hole, all encouraging. We've defined mineralisation widths of in excess of 650 metres across the strike and along 5 kilometres of the strike length so far drilled. Assaying has commenced at ALS Iron Ore Technology Centre in Perth, and more results will be coming in the coming months, which we'll report on. The objective, which we're still on track for, is to deliver an initial around about 150 million tonnes JORC resource estimate by the end of this year, as long as we continue with the run we've had, no interruptions to drilling, analysis, assaying, or resource estimation. So bringing all of this information together, how is the project looking so far? What we're anticipating is potentially 3 high-grade products from Bekisopa iron mineralisation. At surface, we have this outcropping material, at least 5 million tonnes, potentially more, and there could be lump within that weathered surface zone as well. That outcrop material will produce a high-grade lump and fines product, hematite grading an average of about 66% iron, and magnetite grading 68% iron. That's this sort of material at surface having to be crushed to 30 millimetres to make a lump product, high-grade lump product. Then from the surface weathered massive iron, what we're seeing is the potential to produce a high-grade iron ore fines grading better than 65% iron. In the case here, that result there is 66.9%. From the deeper material, the massive and coarse iron that we're seeing, that on average should upgrade to better than 62.8, which is our average at the moment, better than 62% iron ore fines, which is the benchmark grade. The image there on the bottom right-hand side, 63.4%, a very nice, clean, low impurities product. So just looking at the outcropping of the surface weathered massive, my estimation at the minute from what we know, and we've got to build on that, is there's potential there for, I believe, a 15-year operation at a 2 to 3 million tonne product rate out of Bekisopa if the drilling and the assaying continues as we've seen so far. So all very encouraging. On the corporate side, we listed on the ASX in mid-December of last year. We raised 5 million. All of that money is going into drilling. At the end of August, no creditors. We still have $2.9 million in the bank. At a 25-cent share price, our market capitalisation is some 18 million Australian dollars. We're fortunate to have a number of major shareholders, Evan Chan and Mackenzie Financial out of Toronto. Evan Chan at 12.7%, Mackenzie, a major resources trust at 6.2% that are backing the project. Baker Steel out of London, their resources trust at 8%, and directors and management around 6%. In total, the top 20 shareholders hold some 60% of the shares on issue, which is around 61 million at the moment. There's our board: Mike Sturzaker, chairman, Steve Fabian, a non-executive director, a mining engineer, experienced in iron ore, myself, Paul Bibby, managing director, and John Madden, our chief financial officer. That is the team, with John and myself as the executives and management. So thank you for your time. I'll just finish on this last slide, which identifies Vert Capital out of Perth as our brokering and advisor, and Harbury Advisors in Melbourne. There's our contact email addresses. But this last slide here is from Bekisopa 1, the top 4 meters or so of drill core from that first drill hole, 8% iron, which is a terrific number. So thank you for your time and all the best.
Thanks, Paul. It's a pretty comprehensive presentation and really identifies this as an absolute up-and-coming iron ore project that we all must keep a pretty sharp focus on. Some questions here I've got for you. This is the common question that we often get. We've been very fortunate here in Australia with our iron ore industry. Can you compare the Bekisopa product with what we'd expect to get or expect to see generally out of WA?
Okay. Well, firstly, we're blessed here in Australia with the Pilbara and the operators that are up there. That is a very unique, massive iron ore project. The benchmark grade is 62% iron ore. So that's what people strive to achieve. And the Pilbara has been delivering 62% iron ore product for ever since it started. And the main producers are delivering that. They're delivering that from mining, crushing and screening predominantly, and minimal processing. Some of the newer projects like Fortescue and the like, they're producing a 58% iron product, and sometimes that might drop to 56% iron, which is still acceptable in the steel making process, and so on. So what we're seeing outcropping and at surface is high-grade iron ore, comparable grades to what they have in the Pilbara. But at this stage, because we've said 40 drill holes, we're building a resource that's going to be towards 150 million tonnes by the end of this year, and is significantly bigger potentially because the drilling that we're doing now is only over about 25% of that strike on the one tenement. So there's potential for a bigger resource, but the grades at surface are comparable, and the product that we're seen to be able to achieve at a 2 millimetre crush of 65% iron is better than is being delivered by the Pilbara.
And just to follow on from that, the crushing process that you have to apply to the Bekisopa product,
yes,
it's fairly minimal in terms of its the application required and the costs involved. Can you talk a little bit about the crushing to both lump and fines products, and then the markets for those products?
Yes. So the outcropping material, that is basically going to be picked up, crushed, maybe 2 stages of crushing to produce a lump product at 30 millimetres. That's the size of lump iron ore. And so that'll be just crushing and screening, very simple. You know, at large scale, that's of the order of sort of probably less than $5 a tonne. So for us, it's going to be a $5 to $10 per tonne activity. To produce the fines, there'll be a bit more crushing, a bit more screening, and to upgrade it to 65% low intensity magnetic separation. And ideally, we'd look to do that using dry technology as used by Vale in Brazil, but also being developed here in Australia and proven to work very well on iron ore. In terms of the costs, we haven't had extensive studies there, but you know, our estimation is that a $45 cost to get this mined and transported and onto a ship is, we believe, achievable and comparable to, I would say, the bottom, well, the 75% of producers' costs today. So, you know, we think the first thing we have to do is prove up that we've got a resource in terms of tonnes, that resource is high grade, which it is looking to be, and then everything else should fall into place in terms of the operating costs and the processing at a very competitive cost per tonne.
Those costs are extraordinarily low compared to the costs in Australia, probably impacted by a lot of wages, costs, and the fact that they're operating in remote areas of WA. Tell us about operating in Madagascar. The photographs show a much nicer place than the Pilbara, and I imagine the costs of operation are less as well.
Yeah, look, certainly we don't see the extremes of temperatures you do in the Pilbara, but they're accustomed to that. The main producers in the Pilbara are doing way better than $40 a tonne. But they've got scale and years of expertise behind them to do that. At the sort of scale we're talking about, 2 or 3 million tonnes per annum initially, the costs that I've mentioned are realistic, I believe, and still very competitive, even at today's lower than we've seen iron ore price. Operating in Madagascar, Bekisopa is remote. It's at 850 metres above sea level. Like I said, 250 kilometres to the coast, to the port of Toliara. And the one benefit that we have there is that we've got a workforce, a population that's keen to improve their standard of living. Their labour costs are extremely low compared to what we see in Australia and other parts of the developed world. But all the other things like fuel, equipment, trucks, and that sort of thing, maintenance will be the same cost. The advantage will be the low labour cost from the Madagascan workforce.
And Paul, you touched on the idea of a 2 to 3 million tonne production profile. Can you give us a little bit more colour around how that would pan out, maybe the time frame post resource and feasibility study, a bit more of a longer term outlook?
Yeah, look, we've been running a nice race since we listed December of last year. Before that, we didn't know what was below ground. We've proven up that the resource is certainly there, at least 100 metres to 200 metres, and we're getting very good grades. The next target is the resource estimate by the end of this year, and we're on track for that. And then once we know the grades, the tonnes and the like, we can then start doing studies on operating scales going forward. And like I said, the way the images, the data is coming together now, 2 to 3 million tonne per annum operation for the first 15 years, I believe, is very realistic. A good amount of work needs to be done, looking at the processing route in more detail. It'll be very conventional technology. And then what the transporting is, the port facility, getting all of that together. So that's probably still, 2 to 3 years away, being very optimistic, I think, or being optimistic. However, you just don't know. If we can really prove this up and get things moving, post-COVID world, COVID's making many things very difficult. I think a 2 to 3 million tonne per annum operation at these sort of grades and product grades particularly is achievable in the coming years.
And Paul, a 2 to 3 million tonne operation at the sort of costs you're talking about is going to be extremely profitable and throw some pretty tremendous cash. So going through the resource reporting will provide a fair bit of value discovery in the company. You've been in the iron ore game for quite some time. We're seeing a little bit of weakness at the moment, as we often do. It's just a very cyclical commodity.
Yes.
What's the longer term view and the sort of the push and pulls around that price?
Yeah. Look, we're disappointed here in Australia that the price is $100, $110 as it is today for 62% product grade material, way down from the $200. $100 is still a terrific project cost to aim for, because as you build up the processing path, the capital cost profile, you don't design that at $200. You design that at a long-term iron ore price of $65 to $75 a tonne. And that's what you need, to justify expenditure on a project. And then when the price gets to 100, you're smiling. And when it gets above that, you're very, very happy and earning an exceptionally good margin, because, you've got to manage your costs for probably $50 or less, so that as the price is at $100, you're making a very good margin on every tonne that you're producing. And we focus on the big players here in Australia because they've had 50 or 60 years of experience behind them to build to where they are now, producing at 200 and 300 million tonnes per annum. But there are a large number of iron ore companies around the world that are shipping material in the 1 to 5 to 25 million tonne per annum operating size. So the market is there. If you've got the right grades, can produce the high quality products, the iron and steel industry will be wanting those tonnes.
All right, well, that pretty much covers it all, Paul. Thank you very much for your presentation here today. It will be available to anybody on the company website, and we'll be mailing this out as well. If anybody has any questions, please send them in to me, peter@nwrcommunications.com.au, or straight to Paul's email address, which is shown here on the screen. So thank you very much, Paul, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. All the best, everybody. Thank you.